Here's a question for you. When was the last time you sat down and really thought about your year? What worked, what didn't, and where you want to go next?
If your answer is never, or it's been a long time, I totally understand. You're not alone. Most of us just roll into the new year without taking a moment to reflect or set real intentions. But what if you had a framework to make it simple and powerful?
Welcome back to the FI Guys. I'm Chris, here to guide you towards financial clarity and freedom.
And I'm Dom, bringing you insights and tools to help you build a life you love. Today, we're diving into the 7-step framework for a personal annual review, a practical guide to help you reflect on the past year and set yourself up for success in the new year.
Whether you're celebrating a great year or recovering from a tough one, this framework will help you uncover lessons, find clarity, and take action. Plus, we'll be sharing our personal experiences with it and how you can make it your own.
So, grab a notebook, clear your head, and let's start building a year that you can be proud of. We're the FI Guys. Let's dive in.
So Dominic, today I had a different discussion that I wanted to have. If you look at our show notes, as you know, or before we started, I was like, hey, I want to talk about something completely different.
Yeah.
So I know that we're about a month into 2025, but as I am and as my wife are, we've been very, very busy this last year, and we've never had our chance during early January to have our year-end review. So yesterday we sat down with each other and we actually had that year-end review. And I thought about it that we've never actually talked about what me and my wife do every year in order to make sure that we reflect on what last year was and what we want to do moving forward. Because something I've been thinking a lot about is that you don't learn from your experiences. You learn from your reflections on your experiences. And most people never actually take the step to reflect on their experiences. They think, okay, I went through it, I've learned from it. But if you don't actually think about it and be like, this is what I learned from this, how do you think that you're going to move forward with that new framework, that new way of being? So me and my wife have a 7-step way that we go through this, that we've only started now this is their second year doing it. And it's really set things up. So I'd like to share that with you, share that with the audience so that maybe they can use that in their lives and then move forward. I know it's late January and most people say like, oh, if you don't do it on the 2nd, then what's the point of doing it? That's not the right way we should think about this. The best time is right now. We don't have access to the past.
True. I loved what you said right there. Learning comes from reflection. I love that. I can only imagine how many times we went through struggle, we went through pain, and we just moved on past it. I'm trying to survive, man. I'm just trying to get through this. It's like, no. Cool, get through it, but look back on it. What can you learn from it? Learning comes from reflection. And I think that's why cognitive thinking is down so much, is we're overstimulated and we never take the time to reflect, right? The people of the olden times, pre-internet, had so much time to reflect because I assume there was nothing else to do. I mean, there's no YouTube, no FI Guys to watch. So, I mean, obviously there's, I don't know what else you would do with your time, truthfully. But that's so brilliant. What a beautiful nugget to start off the podcast. I agree. I don't even remember the question you asked. I was just so starstruck by that your knowledge and your depth of your experience comes from reflection and somewhat also meditation. But I'm excited. I'm excited for you to walk us through your practice and how you do it, how you and your wife do it. So yeah, let's hop in. Let's do it. Let's get in. Let's please. I'm the most excited viewer of all time. So take that, Steve, in the comments. Sorry about that. But
yeah, we see you, Steve. All right. Yeah, we're coming for you. But what I'd like to do today is first we're going to walk through the 7 steps that we do. And while we're doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get personal with you guys, with our audience members. As we've kind of gone farther along, I've been more and more open to be authentic with our listeners, to let them know, like, this is what's going on in my life. That way, maybe you guys can see, oh, okay, hey, Chris is a real person too. And if he can be authentic with us when it comes to his money, to his finances, to his family, what's going on there, then we can be authentic with other people. And then you can see maybe more truth. Because I think there's too many people who are going around trying to show that their life is perfect. And it's very hard in this day and age when we all think that everyone else has a perfect life because everyone's only curating their perfect life. Mm-hmm. Only when there's people who are willing to be like, hey, I'm enough the way that I am. I'm not perfect. And that's okay. Can we all begin to say, like, that's okay for me too, and actually move forward? Yeah. So I'm going to give you the 7 framework, and I'm going to talk to you guys about what me and my wife went through in 2024. All right. So the 7-step framework is what we use for a personal annual review. Now, if you don't have a partner, I would definitely recommend still doing this on your own. Actually, I'm going to require that you still do this on your own, even if you don't have a partner.
Yeah.
If you don't have a partner, you have a great ability to do this with a pen and paper, or we now have AI that you can actually use, like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever, to talk to as if it is your person. You can just prompt it to say, hey, I want you to just be a listener, a sounding board, and give me back what you're hearing. So the reason we do this every year is it helps us reflect on our past year, but more importantly, it helps us plan for the next year. And the way that I've created this is that it encourages clarity, intentionality, and continuous improvement. So the first thing that we do, I think we all know this, starting a conversation is extremely difficult, especially with your life partner, or even with yourself, to start getting on this path of like, what were the biggest things last year and how do I want to plan for next year? If you tell somebody, hey, plan out all of 2025, most people are going to be like, I want it to be good. It's too broad of a question to just drop at somebody. So the way that I've made this step work or this framework is it feeds into one another so that each question you have builds off the last one. So when you finally get to the last step, you're like, oh, okay, this is easy. I've already talked about all this. So the first thing we're going to do, if you're doing this with a partner, it makes it a lot easier, is I want to talk about our wins as a couple. So this is what me and my wife did. We sat down and we reflected on our biggest accomplishments and our victories from last year. And we celebrated what went well together.
And that could be anything from a financial win. Maybe we got a cat, got a dog, went on a great vacation, went to Tokyo, anything like that. Or are we talking, I learned how to cook pancakes for the first. What are we talking? Can they be small? Can they be big? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's a right way. I think that's something I've been finding more and more is that there isn't a right way to do things, but there are infinite number of wrong ways. So if you go ahead and say like, hey, I learned to bake pancakes this year, maybe your spouse can be like, that's really not a win. But if it's a win to you, then it's a win to you.
Yeah.
So for me and my wife, when we sat down, we talked about our wins. We said like, we got to travel to like 4 different countries last year. We went to a bunch of different states. We took like 40 flights. We got to do all of these things and like see the world. We got to grow closer together. We got to do all these things. The podcast has grown. We got to talk about all of these different things that she got to bring up for her job. I got to bring up for my work. We got to just talk about what we did together, what we did separately, all of that. Whatever wins you want to talk about, this is really just setting a framework of what went well last year. What did we enjoy? And both people get to hear like, oh, you thought that was your big thing? Okay, cool. And come at it with no judgment. If your partner says like, I learned how to make pancakes, don't be like, well, that's stupid. Just be like, wow, I'm really glad that you learned how to make pancakes. That's a big thing to you. Cool, then it's a big thing to me.
Yeah, and I also would say if they call you out on your pancakes, that's probably a red flag. You got to work on the communication here in the next year, just a little bit. Not all of us are Olympic athletes and world travelers. Some of us had bad years, and pancakes that was our light at the end of the tunnel. That was our win. So yeah, it's I love what you said. Come in with an open mind, come in with kindness, right? Sometimes we have years in our life where, man, you look back and like, it was not a good year. But you got to find those little gems, find those pancakes. It doesn't have to be 4 countries. It doesn't have to be started a podcast. It doesn't have to be, started a new business, got married. It doesn't have to be super grandeur. Small wins that's still a win. So take it for what it is. And I know a lot of people who aren't in the personal development arena, I would say, they never look back on last year. Let's hope it's not the final year. Tell you what. And it's tough for people to look back because they feel like they didn't do anything, right? But find those small wins. Small wins matter. Small wins, I would say small wins matter equal to or even more than big wins. Because it's the small wins that come more often and keep you going. So make sure to have a positive outlook on that and keep looking for those small wins.
Yeah. And I'm going to echo what you just said there. I think that when some people hear that you need to bring out the wins, they're going to be like, Chris, my last year was just awful. I can't think of a single thing that went well. And if that's you saying that, I'm going to push you to dig deeper. Because I guarantee that if you are in this next year, something went well. You slept well once. You had a good meal at one point. If you didn't have a good meal, you at least ate. You survived 2024.
Absolutely.
You made it through. There are always good and there's always bad in all things. And if you choose to only see the bad in all things, you will only see the bad in all things. But even in the worst moments, there is something that you can be grateful for. You know, you can get a call or you can get in an accident, lose your left arm. Effectively, not good moment. But if you choose to, you can be like, hey, at least I didn't lose my life. At least I didn't lose both my left and my right arm.
There's a quote that has been ringing in my head this first month of the new year. It's a Chinese proverb, and it goes, "The one who judges other people is early in their journey. The one who judges themselves is in the middle of their journey, and the one who judges no one is at the end of their journey." And, you know, they did a study in Harvard that said if you tell yourself that you're lucky, if you believe that you're the type of person that's lucky, you start to see luck in your world. It's really bizarre. I encourage you guys to look it up after today's podcast. But what I'm getting at here is, let's say you had a terrible year. Let's say you had to file for bankruptcy this year. You lost a lot of things. Okay. Objectively, bad year. If it's about how you frame it, right? I filed for bankruptcy this year. I got a new chapter ahead of me. I made a decision to fix my life and go in a better direction. Rather than doing nothing and standing still and being killed by financial interest and the financial powers that be, I made a decision for myself and I'm trying to put myself in the right direction. That's a big win, right? It's a big win. Maybe I was in the hospital for 6 months. Maybe I broke my femur. Maybe I broke my back. Maybe I was in recovery for months and months and months. Hey, that only makes the story greater, right? The comeback story, the story that you tell yourself when you're down. It's like, man, I am pretty great, you know? So always, always, always try to keep that positive outlook. And, I feel like, Christmas, it can be a very depressing time for a lot of people, and the new year as well, because they look back and they feel like they haven't done anything. They feel like they've wasted a year. And maybe it's true. I'm not sitting here being optimistic and sugarcoating everything. Maybe it's true. Maybe you did waste a year, right? But you're alive now, and we can't change that. But now we're aware of that. And that's what this podcast is today. That's what today's episode is all about. Is improving the old to better the new. So, number one, write down those wins. I like that. Big or
Write down
small,
those wins.
write them down.
Just do it.
Yep.
And for my wife and I, when we do this, we like since we have a sounding board to bounce off of one another, we don't write anything down until we get to the last few. So during these wins, we're not writing down like we had this one, we had this one, we had this one, because now I feel like we're just sitting there like taking notes rather than actually having a conversation. So
Okay.
another thing you could do if you want to have these as notes is maybe open up again. I use AI for like everything now. Open up a notes app, speak to text, and then you guys just have your conversation. Most note app can delineate two different people's voices, and they can put that in there. If you don't know one, Otter, OTTER, is one that's really, really good, and it's free up to a certain level. And just so you know, this conversation should probably be about a minimum of 30 minutes, but it can go up to a few hours. It really depends on the couple and what they want to do. If you're doing it alone, obviously it's going to go faster. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about our wins. I don't care how big, I don't care how small. Just talk about what went well in your last year, and make sure that you reflect on that and find the good. Doesn't matter how bad your year was, there is good in there if you choose to find it. The next thing we're going to do, step 2 of the 7-step framework. This is the hard one. This is the hardest one for me and my wife. Like there were tears, there were all the stuff that you don't want to see like a man doing, but it is part of what being a real man is being in touch with those sides. And this is talking about your losses. So analyze your failures or your setbacks and consider what you learned, but more importantly, how they helped you. So for my wife and I, we talked about losses. Be totally honest with you, Dominic, with our audience member. I know you know more than most people, Dom, since we talk so much. 2024 for me and my wife was a very mixed bag. I surf when I was in San Diego, I surfed all the time. Now I'm in Arizona, I don't surf very often because I haven't been able to find some choice waves. Um, but there's sometimes when you're surfing bigger waves, and you go down, and you're under the wave, and you're just kind of chilling. But some days you try coming back up, and then right the moment you come back up, you just get smashed by a wave. And then you're like, all right, I'm just gonna stay down. I'm gonna stay calm. And you're like, all right, I think I can come up. You come up, and then the moment you come up, before you even get to catch that breath, you're getting smashed by another wave. And that's how I felt that 2024 was for me and my wife. It was just one of those times where we're like, man, I just need to catch a breath. I don't know if I'm gonna make it if I can't. So for this last year, we had so many wins we got to talk about, but also in our losses, we had some pretty big losses this year. Uh, you know, subjectively to me and my wife was very difficult. We had some huge reflections on, are we going to be able to make it? Like, will we be able to make it as a couple? Because, it's just such a big year. There was some big things that went wrong in my business. I think one of the biggest things that I'm willing to talk about now that was hard was that we had a miscarriage. And that was very, very difficult to come back from, like, having the thought process of, like, oh my gosh, we're having a baby, like this is going to be so exciting. We go and we tell all of our family and friends. We definitely got overexcited. We bought stuff, like we bought we bought a bunch of things for it that's still sitting in a closet in the other room. So it was really hard to go through that, and we got to sit there and actually talk about that lesson of, like, it wasn't a failure. Neither one of us failed in having a miscarriage, but it certainly was a setback. It certainly was a loss. And we got to sit there and we got to reflect on that and learn from it, and how we both grew from it. So while there were a lot of things that went wrong, we chose to look on the positive. We got to chose to look on the quote unquote winning side of this loss. It brought us closer together in a moment that we really needed to be closer together, because we needed one another to get through that. In addition to that, it helped me to be more empathetic to other people, to share with other people that, hey, I've gone through this too. I don't know what you're feeling, but I know what it was like for me. And it was kind of crazy that, like, this last or during Christmas time, we went out and we visited some family, and we were meeting a bunch of people, meeting family, meeting friends. And, one of the people came up to me, and I know that he has an adopted daughter. And, anyone who adopts a kid and doesn't have their own kid, there's typically a reason for that. It means that they probably had struggles with it. So we were talking, me and this guy, and he asked me, like, hey, so when are you and your spouse going to have kids? I was like, that's actually our journey for 2025. That's something that we really want to do. And he's like, okay, have you guys been trying it all? And I was like, well, actually we had a miscarriage in 2024. And he's like, wow, I'm really sorry to hear that. And then he told me his story of the struggles he went through. And, that loss of going through that miscarriage gave us such strength in being able to immediately connect with people who've gone through that same struggle. And now me and that person are like, we're like, hey, buddy, like, immediately, because we both were able to share in our common humanity and our common suffering, to see, like, hey, I see you and you see me, and we're able to move forward. So even in the worst losses, if you choose to look on the good side, you can learn from them, and they will help you grow.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not easy sharing something like that. So I know I appreciate it, and I know our viewers appreciate it. It's scary to open up to literally the world. Every time Chris and I come on the podcast, right before we start, we're like, hey, we're going, this is for 10,000 people. We're going live, 10,000 people. We're stepping out, 10,000 people, right? So it's not felt, it's not taken lightly, like what you're saying. And the human experience, there's so many ups and there's so many downs. And it's important that there's ups and there's downs. I think it's beautiful that in a time of tragedy, in a time of loss and hurt, pain, you saw the positive side of, no, we actually got closer. We actually got stronger together. In a time where it could have went the other way, And for a lot of couples, it does. But this thing that's kind of stuck in my head for a while, and I don't know if I believe it yet, but I guess I do believe it, but it says love is a choice, right? Love is a choice. I choose to love you, right? And you both making that choice, it's like, no, I love you, you love me. We're in this together. We're a team, and I love that. Without the sadness, there is no happiness. I think you really do have to have sadness, anger, pain, destruction, the bad side of life in order to feel the good side of life. If you ate steaks every day, it wouldn't mean anything, you know? If you went on vacation every day, you would crave being home. And if you were happy every day, what would that even feel like? Because I look like a very happy person. I'm I'm a real joyous, jolly fella. Um, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and I'm grateful that it isn't. And you should be grateful that your life isn't all sunshine and rainbows too. How can we learn from the losses? I know you said earlier in the podcast, reflection, learning comes from reflection. When you're talking with your wife about the losses, the bad things that happened this year, and I say bad in quotations because it's all about how you look on it, how you look at it. You know, oh, I got hit by a car. Like you said, it's pretty bad. It's not great. Not great. But I went to the hospital. I fell in love with the nurse, and we're getting married next year. It's like, you know, it's all objective truths. You know, it's how you see things. So how do you go into the loss and really try and get as much out of it without, because what I'm afraid of for a lot of people is they're going to be the number one wins easy, you know, or hard. But we'll say easy for this one. It's easy, right? And then they go to the losses and they just get sucked in. It's like when you're walking by a pond in Florida and an alligator comes out and grabs you, drags you in. You know, that's what I'm worried about. That's what I imagine. Because while the happiness and the wins are great, the losses are felt a lot deeper most of the time. So how do you move on to step number 3, alive and well still, but how do you go through number 2 and extract as much as you can out of it? Because I know you, I know me, you know, we don't want to have the same mistakes happen over and over and over because then we're not learning from our mistakes. So how do you extract the most out of those losses?
It's really hard, first off, and there's not an easy way to do this. But you know me, I'm very big into Buddhism, very big into Taoism, very big into Stoicism. And each one of those different philosophies talks a lot about control what you can control and don't judge what is, just be with what is. And the only thing that you control is the way that you respond to it. So something I've been trying to do, and this is going to be kind of the next part. Actually, let's move on to step number 3, and I'll kind of explain it in the thing of step number 3. Step number 3, after we talk about our losses, at that point, you might be feeling like, oh man, like I'm stuck in it. Like this sucks. Like this is the worst thing. I don't even want to keep going. Like I just did the wins. I felt good. Now Chris has brought me down to like I'm just in the muck and I don't know what to do anymore. And that's why we move on to step number 3. This is the lessons. We identify our key insights from this last year. And this could be lessons for ourselves, lessons for others, lessons for life in general. And I think when we look at our losses, it's really hard. Objectively, it is really hard to look at those things. But I think the hardest thing about lessons, about those losses, is I'm going to teach you guys a Sanskrit word. It's called dukkha. And dukkha doesn't have a perfect translation to English. Closest translation would probably be suffering. But a better, if you had to do a single word, but a better word would be like unsatisfactoriness. Unsatisfactoriness of life. And I think the reason that losses hurt so much is because the story in our head was that this was going to work out. Everything was going to go well. I was going to win the game. We were going to have a baby. I was going to pay off that debt. And then life happened. The actual physics of the real world happened. And when the physics of the real world happen to you, and they don't meet up with the story that you told yourself in your head, we experience a loss. The same way we experience a win when the world supersedes the story that we had in our head. That's a win to us. What's the common thing between both of those? It's the story we're telling ourselves in our heads. That story wasn't true. What happened was true. So I guess the way that I've tried to get past the losses is to come at it with no judgment. And I'm not saying that's easy. It's probably one of the hardest things that I've tried to work on this year. But that was one of the lessons that I identified in this part of the key years was coming into things with non-judgment. That these things are what they are. They're not good. They're not bad. They just are. And how am I going to respond to that?
Absolutely. You know, they say that most of life is just how you react to it. And it's so true. It's so true. Because how you react to it also depends on how you see it. We might see the same thing and be like, wow, this is the worst day of my life. And the other person might be like, oh, this isn't too bad. Just another day. Just is.
And I think it's important to remember that the worst thing you've ever been through is the worst thing you've ever been through. I think too often do we go through this life and we're comparing our pain to somebody else's pain to see, like, is my pain valid? Like, is this really painful? Like, yes, of course it's valid. If you're experiencing it, it is valid. That doesn't mean it's true though. Your truth is not reality. Actually, if you want to go down to like a real way of looking at it, like, we don't know what reality is as a baseline. Like, we don't know that. In order to like have anything in physics, like, you have to grant me gravity for me to explain everything else. You have to grant me truth in order to explain everything else. But in order to define these words, what is gravity? What is truth? What is knowledge? That is the baseline. Those are the hardest things in the world to actually define. So, what is true? What is reality? What are these words? I don't know. I'm exploring that in my own brain. I still have no answers. But for you to say, like, oh, what I'm experiencing is truth, is wrong, because Dominic, myself, somebody else could be experiencing another truth. And for you to say that your truth is the objective truth and their truth is not true, I don't want to say things are right and wrong. I like to use the word skillful and unskillful. This is more of a Buddhist way of looking at it. Is that action of you thinking that your way of looking at the world is objectively true? Is that skillful or unskillful? Is that allowing you to move through the world in a better way, interact with other people, thinking that you're always right, that your way of looking at the world is the correct way? Because like Dominic said, we could both go through something. Two people could be in the same car, passengers maybe right next to each other. Same car crash, same accident, same broken bones, same everything.
Yeah.
One person can walk away being like, that was the worst thing I've ever been through, and they could have PTSD for the rest of their life. The next person can be like, wow, this moment showed me the fragility of life, and they can dedicate themselves to helping other people. And it could be the biggest moment of their life. You see this a lot of soldiers that go to war. Two soldiers, same battalion, same group, same training class, everything. One person goes there, never comes back. They're the PTSD, like their brain is always there. They're stuck in it. Another person comes back and they decide that they want to dedicate themselves to helping other veterans, dedicate themselves to other people, dedicate themselves to things because of the things they saw. Both these things are true simultaneously. And it's the person that is able to go back and see the wins, see the losses, and see the lessons that they learned and take the quote unquote right lessons, but I'll say the skillful lessons away from that and allow that to help them propel them forward.
And this is what I love about our journey with this podcast and the journey of self-development is a lot of the tools we're building in our mind. I don't know if we'll use all of them because I can't see the future, but it's so important to build these tools, learn these lessons, so when the hard times come, and they will come, that you're ready, not to get through them, but to extract everything you can from it, to learn as much as you can from it, to develop as much as you can from it. You know, I can imagine an unlimited amount of scenarios from my childhood, from high school, from even college, where, man, if I had the mindset I have now, I took it back then, I'd be even happier. You know, I would float. I would float through the world. I'm not saying I would be the best student. You know, some things don't change as much. But it would definitely change how I remember situations, because back then I didn't have tools like I have now. And I'm not talking hammers and screwdrivers, obviously. I'm talking about the mental framework. How do you see things? And you know, you assume that this kind of knowledge, this depth of knowledge, comes with age. And I don't believe that's always true. So if you're 15 listening to this, you can become a version that Chris and I are now, right? You can start to become that. But it takes time on your journey and going through life and experiencing the hardships, the pain, the struggle, the agony, the success, and then the fall from success back up to success, you know? But it's those lessons that you learn along the way that are so valuable. And I hope that you guys are still taking notes. I hope that you guys are constantly thinking about how to better yourself, how to better your community. You know, I had an aha moment a couple weeks ago and it made so much sense. I was helping this lady at my job and it meant the world to me because she walked in and she was having so much trouble. And I 20, 30 minutes with her. We got her all situated, all helped out. She left with the biggest smile. She thanked me and everything. And it was like, I love helping people. It's like, oh, that's why I do the podcast. That's why I do my streams. And that's why we're here. We're not selling a course. There's no Fi crypto coin, unfortunately, not yet. Releasing 2025, possibly. That's a joke. We really do this to help you guys and be the mentor that we wish we had when we were 15, 16, 20, or even if you're older. It's never too late to start improving your life. But I kind of went off on a rant. Let's get back on the 7 steps. Sorry, I was on my soapbox. Now I'm off of it. A little bit shorter now, but let's get back. So we did number 1. You wrote down your wins. Number 2, we wrote down those losses. Number 3, we did the lessons. Number 4.
Number 4 is gratitude. This is to help us a little bit more get out of that losses. So I want you to go ahead and list down or talk about the people, the events, or the things that you're thankful for. The reason we do this is that cultivating gratitude promotes positivity and a wider perspective. So me and my wife, we went through these together. And my wife said, I'm grateful for the trips that we took. I'm grateful for you, Chris. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for, the world. I'm grateful for all these things, all the positive things she is grateful for. And after she said that, I was like, I don't really have, I'm grateful obviously for my wife. She didn't mention herself. The thing I said that I was grateful for was I'm grateful for our losses. I'm grateful for the bad things that happened this last year because those are the things that, while hard, were the things that brought us together, were the things that got us through some of those moments, was being able to be there together through it. So obviously, if I had the chance to go back and redo it, I wouldn't say yeah, I would definitely want to go through that again. Let's just do it 20 more times. But that doesn't mean that just because you did go through it, that you'll have to go through it again. You can still see it and be like, yeah, I went through that and I made it through. And I know I can do it. So in that gratitude, you list people, you list things, you list everything. As we begin to have that more gratitude, we get to see all of the things that go in, all the work that everyone does in order for us to live. Just for you to live in your house means that someone's somewhere they're working, they work to grow the trees. That there is AC, there's power getting pumped in. Someone had to figure that out. Water is getting pumped in. Someone had to figure that out. For you to have your cup of coffee in the morning, if you wanted to thank everyone that did that, you would be thanking people for generations. It's impossible. But when we get that wider perspective, that gratitude, it shows us how interconnected we all are and how no one is an island.
Absolutely. You said something there that you're grateful for the losses, and it kind of brought like a quote to mind, and I'm going to say it. But losses bring clarity in the fog with the right framework. And I think that's why we admire the losses so much, because with the right framework, you wouldn't have known. You're a different person now. And for me, every time I went through a loss, a change happened. Sometimes bad, sometimes good, but it's a choice. And we talk a lot about the mind and perspective and gratitude and all these different things. And sometimes they sound like just woo-woo words, like, Chris and I, we're not, fitness influencers on Instagram talking about you need to ground yourself in like gratitude and like all this stuff. It's like, no, we're just regular people. We're normal people. And we found these like little gems in life, these little secrets. And we don't have a mountaintop near us, but we do have a podcast. And we go to the top of the podcast and we shout what we've discovered. And this is what we've discovered. That, like you said, I mean, that definition you gave for gratitude was beautiful. Cultivating gratitude promotes positivity and perspective. I can't think of a truer definition. And for a lot of people, it's hard to be grateful because they see, oh, well, man, the neighbor, they got a new car. I still got the '06 Honda. You know, man, look at Joe. Like he got a new house and he's just got married, and I don't even have a significant other. You know, so I don't know how to teach gratitude, and that's one of the things that I've been trying to like. Man, I want to inspire more people. I want to teach more people about gratitude, but it sounds so arrogant sometimes. You know, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how to teach gratitude, and I wish I could install it in more people, but then it wouldn't be felt as deeply. But I'm wondering, and I know you have a thought coming up. I saw it in your mind. I'm curious though, where did you learn gratitude from, Chris? Do you know, was there like a spot? Because I remember where I learned gratitude from.
Buddhism.
Buddhism.
Like, yeah, Buddhism taught
Yeah.
me gratitude. Like, I of course, everyone knows about gratitude. Like, everyone, like
Yeah. Yeah.
when you
Everybody
went to
knows.
church, you went to church as a kid,
Exactly.
everyone's like, be grateful, all this stuff. But like, it
Mhm.
wasn't until like Buddhist, like, I wouldn't say prayer, but like meditation,
Mhm.
that I was like, oh, this is the reason you do this. It's not because gratitude puts you onto the mountaintop. It's that gratitude helps you walk up the hill.
Wow. That's powerful. That is, that's, do you say that one more time?
Yeah, I just that was off the dome. So gratitude doesn't put you on top of the mountaintop. Gratitude helps you walk up the hill.
Wow. That's, that is, give the video a like, bro. Give the video a like, 5 stars, share the podcast, all that fun stuff. That's a gem. That's a gem. That's an absolute gem. Yeah, the reason I ask where you learn gratitude from is some of us learn it the easy way, some of us learn it the hard way. For me, when I learned gratitude, it came from watching death all around me, going to funerals over and over and over, and understanding that the people who were in the box, in the casket, being lowered into the earth for the last time, they weren't in their 80s. They were in their 20s, in their 30s, young. And that conditioned me as a younger fellow that life is short. Be grateful for what you have, because it can be all. I mean, my heart's been beating since the day I entered the earth. Thankfully, it could stop at any moment. Bam, gone, done, game over. Push your chips in, walk away. And that kind of framework, growing up like that, really taught me, like, hey, don't complain, because guess what? It could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse. And I'm sure as parents, my parents love that, because I never asked for any toys or anything. So sure, they got off easy, scot free. Just wait till I have kids. They're gonna be little menaces. Just wait. Anyway, gratitude doesn't put you on top of the mountain, but it does help you walk up the hill, thing like that. Yeah, that's so true. And I'm glad that's in the 7 steps. That was number 4, correct?
Yeah, gratitude.
Yeah.
And you just brought up something where you're talking about death. And now that I guess I think about it a little bit more, the meditation that you do in order to reflect on your gratitude is to imagine that you're not here, to imagine that the things that you want aren't here. And in truth, that is death. Imagine if you didn't have this camera. Imagine you didn't have that. Like that thing, those things would be dead to you. They'd be gone. And it's when we realize that we realize how important things are. Marcus Aurelius, if you read Meditations, he talks about when you tuck your kids in at night, think it to yourself that this might be the last time. And obviously, people don't even want to do that. They're like, "Oh my God, if I even put that into the world, then like the energy is going to flow, and then my kids are going to die." That's not really the way it works.
No.
But when you have that moment of, "Hey, I'm tucking in my kid, I'm giving my dog a kiss goodnight, I'm telling my wife I love her," if you just think for a second, like this could be the last time, it's going to make that moment so much more precious. Because what do we normally do? We try to like, okay, kid, go, shut up, sit down, like go to sleep. The guy needs to go watch Netflix. I need to go scroll on Instagram. I need to go do this thing that truly doesn't matter. And like if you're listening to this, that stuff doesn't matter. Yet we all do it because we think that these moments with our kids, these moments with our other people, these moments of true, genuine love are infinite. We're always going to have it. But when it goes away, you realize that you would trade anything for 5 more minutes. Just 5 more minutes with that person. You would give anything for that. So the sooner that you can reflect on that and realize it, the more that we can choose to live right now. Because too many of us, we're living in the future. Oh, I can't wait till I get to watch my Netflix. I'll finally be happy. or we're living in the past. Oh, if only I had done this, I'd be happy now. We don't have access to either one of those universes. We only have access to right now. And when you think about that word now, like how long is now, Dom?
Changes every
Instantaneous.
second.
It
Yeah.
it ended. It ended,
Yeah.
and here it is again. We're back
Yeah.
in now.
That's crazy.
I'm not asking you to be perfect for infinity. I'm asking you to be good, to try to be the best you can for right now. Be present right now. Don't be present all the time. Don't be present for the future. I'm not telling you to be present for your whole life. Be present right now. And then if you want to be present right now, do it again. And do it again. Do it again. If you want to go to the gym, don't go to the gym for 6 hours. Go to the gym right now. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, we live in a society where everything is just kicked down the road. I mean, everything. Even our debts. You know, I'm not going to buy this car right now, but I'll buy it now and I'll pay it off later rather than getting something that you can't afford, maybe something you use all cash. But procrastination is such a problem in our in our world. And maybe the car example isn't the best example, right? I mean, most Americans don't have enough to cover what is it, a $500 bill?
$400
Yeah,
emergency.
$400 emergency bill. So I'd like to move on to the next point, though, if
Yeah.
you don't mind.
One thing to take it to financial real quick is so many people will be like, oh, like if I have to save money, that means I have to save money infinitely. If I don't
Yeah,
spend this money now, I have to do it infinitely. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying save 10% right now. Invest. Do something right now.
yeah,
That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for infinity. Our brain would automatically be like, you ever, I don't know, you ever broke your arm, you ever had something, and now your brain will be like, oh my God, this is painful, and it's gonna be painful forever. And like you do that. We do that all the time. Your spouse is mad at you. They're mad at me, they're gonna be mad at me forever. And that's not the way it is. Nothing is forever. All of life is a constant change. So I'd like to move on to step number 5, Dominic. So step number 5, after we've done our wins, we've done our losses, we've done our lessons, we've done our gratitude, is I want you to come up with a theme. So I want you to determine a theme. What we used is a word from my wife and I that encapsulates the entire year. And once you have this word, it helps you to reflect on and define the year in its essence. So for my wife, she used the word roller coaster. And for me, I used the word perspective. The reason I used the word perspective, to bring back to your point a little bit earlier, Dominic, was the perspective of life and death, the perspective of what really matters. At the end of last year, end of 2023, my grandmother died right before Thanksgiving, like a few days before. In this new year, we had a lot of ups and downs. We lost the baby that we were so excited for. And it's in those moments, just like you reflected on when you were a kid, that you saw what really mattered, what was really important. And for me, it was like, oh, it's not about the money. It's not about the things I have. It's not about any of those stuff. It's about these little moments you have with other people. That's what endures. I think too many of us, we go around saying like, oh, in order for me to live forever, because we can't imagine a world without us in it, I have to leave my kids a bunch of money. I have to leave a house. I have to leave my name somewhere. But the thing that's going to echo through history is who you were, not your name. Your name is going to be gone, but who you were is what's going to be reflected down to your children, to the people you meet. And ideally, those ripples, like in a pond, expand outward and expand outward and expand outward. Our goal as people is to try to advance people, try to advance knowledge, try to advance consciousness. And the only way we do that is by being our best, most authentic selves right now.
100%. I love the idea of placing a word, a theme to the year. For me, last year, I'd probably put as, I don't know if this counts, 2 words, but new beginnings. Right? Moved out for the first time. And with that, a whole load of different things unraveled because of it. Being an adult for the first time is interesting, very interesting. And I don't say new beginnings in a good way, and I don't say it in a bad way. It's just new beginnings. So that was number 5. Put a theme to it.
Yeah, put a
Number
theme to it
6.
just so you can reflect a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Number
Absolutely.
6 is this is where we actually start planning for the next year. And this is where we set our priorities. So we set your focus for the upcoming year and identify the key area or areas that you want to prioritize. This is to make sure that we're not just going to go through next year and saying, "Oh, whatever happens, happens," and I'll reflect back on it later and be like, that was the mission." If you don't have a clear goal, you're never going to get there. And the unaimed arrow always never misses its mark. Both those things are true. But what I find is sometimes in life, if we have that priority, it gives us a place to go to. Maybe the next level of that is to not have a place to go to and just be with what is. But in our system, where I am right now in my life, that's not where I can be yet. Who knows? Maybe that's a thing that some other people attain, but I haven't attained it yet. So for priorities, my wife and I, we set a few different ones. My wife's priority was to be a better listener, to listen to other people better, to not take things so personally, to be able to just to listen. And I'm not going to talk too much about hers because that's
Yeah,
her thing that she
I
wants to talk
understand.
about. And then my thing was enoughness and exploring this concept of what is enough. And earlier, Dominic, you talked about, I wish we could instill gratitude. And the podcast actually today was supposed to be on this concept of enoughness. We were going to have a philosophical discussion on that. And I'd like to explore that here in the next few weeks. But I felt like I needed more time to really think about it, to meditate on it myself before I was willing to go out into the podcast verse and just start espousing nonsense. I mean, regardless, it's probably just going to be a bunch of nonsense. But I wanted to give a little bit more thought on that because I do have some thoughts on how can we instill gratitude in people? How can we do all these things? So as you were saying that, I'm like, oh boy, Dominic, do I have a podcast for you? But that's what I want to explore in 2025 is what is enough? What is enough financially? What is enough spiritually? What is enough? Am I enough? And I think it's going to be one of those profound questions that most likely doesn't have an answer, doesn't have a right answer,
Yeah.
but it does have an infinite number of wrong answers.
Yeah, I'm already starting to go down the rabbit hole in my own mind of like, what does the definition of enough even mean? You know, and where does it come from? I'm excited for that podcast coming up in a few weeks. I'll be prepping for that, building my own framework in my mind for what is enough and what does it mean to be enough, and is there such a thing?
And then we both had additional goals to our number one priorities that we both want to work with was we had our financial goals and our professional growth goals. And my wife and I, this year in 2025, our hope is to move back to San Diego. And before we do that, we have financial goals that we want to meet. So we talked about in order to meet that, we have professional growth goals that we both want to be able to meet. And if we're able to meet our professional growth goals, that will directly correlate to our financial goals, which will directly correlate to us moving to San Diego, which will be able to do that. And I'm not saying that in order for us to work on our priorities, the enoughness, the listening, that we first have to hit the financial goals. It's an and. We want to do the personal growth, the professional growth, the financial growth. It's not you have to hit one, and once you're done with the next, you go to the next one. Too many people go like that. They think like, oh, in order for me to invest, I first have to pay off debts. In order for me to pay off debts, I first have to have an emergency fund. In order to have an emergency fund, I first have to do this. Why does it have to be an or? It should be an and. Most of the time in life, we use the words or and but far too often, when the word we should be using is and. And there can be two things done simultaneously at the same time. That is the way the world works. That is what quantum physics tells us,
Yeah.
which is the way the world actually works. So we've now gone through 6 of the steps. We've done our wins. We've done our losses. We've done our lessons. We've done our gratitude. We've figured out the theme for the year, and we've set our priorities. Now, this is the part that most people end up just going straight to the end. They have no idea, no framework of how to do anything. This is where we plan. This is where if I was to ask you at the beginning, before we went through these steps, hey, plan 2025, go for it. Yeah, I have no idea. What happened in 2024? I don't know. What was my theme? Where was I trying to go to? What is all this? But now we have our priorities for 2025. We have our theme for 2024. We have the gratitude of the things that worked well in 2024. We have our lessons we learned. We know what our losses were. And we know what our wins were. So let's go ahead and try to work more of those things. So in step number 7, we're going to plan. We're going to create actionable steps to achieve our priorities. The priorities we just set one step before. This step is the tie-in. It's the reflection towards forward movement and forward momentum. It's the thing that sets us up to put us on the starting line, to be like, this is where I want to go. I know my priorities are because I knew where I have been. I know what worked. I know what didn't. When it comes to planning, this is where you need to come in. I can't tell you how to plan it. I don't know your life. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what your priorities are. For me and my wife, we sat down and we said, okay, this is what we want to do in January. This is where we want to be financially by this time. This is what we're going to do to discover our personal things. My wife has her plans. I have my plans of meditation, of exploration, of all these things. My wife doesn't meditate. She doesn't do any of that stuff that I do. She thinks I'm crazy most of the time. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine. That is what it is. But you need to plan it out because if you don't have a plan, you're not going to hit your destination. And until we get to that point, until we've reached the mountaintop, we should keep on trying to at least reach the mountaintop. Once we've gotten there to the mountaintop, now we can be the unnamed error. But I'm not sure if that's possible, at least for me right now.
And that is the 7-step framework for the personal annual review, designed by yours truly, Chris Monzon Wealth. There are so many gems in that one, but I would like to say that I can't tell you how many times I planned, quote unquote, planned with the bunny ears, right? Without reflecting. I love the idea of looking at my wins, looking at my losses, and looking at the lessons I learned from both. And when you have a gratitude framework, a gratitude mindset, a gratitude vision on those lessons, and you put a proper theme to what the year meant to you, only then can you prioritize and plan for the new year. And just because it's not January 1st doesn't mean you can't improve your life. Doesn't mean you can't go to the gym, write a book, read a book, start learning a new habit or hobby. I think so often we wait for the right moment. And I'm going to speak on this for a bit, just real briefly. There's this Japanese ritual called the misogi that I've been obsessed about. And Chris, you might know about this one.
I do, but yeah.
And basically it's a year, you do something every year that when you look back on, that's what you did that year, right? Could be I quit smoking. Could be I ran a marathon. It could be something like that. And I put a misogi in my mind of one thing that I wanted to accomplish this year. And it was funny because I'm like, I should do this right now. And I don't want to put it out. I'll say it, right? It's to run a certain distance. I'm not going to tell you the distance. I have it in my head. I'm not going to tell you the distance, but it's to run a certain
100
distance.
feet.
Dude, it's a long ass distance. I'll say that much. It's a long ass distance. It's longer than 2 feet. It's longer than 2 feet. But I'm like, man, I could die tomorrow. I need to go now. I need to go now. And for me, and the theme that I'm trying to carry and the habits that I'm trying to build this new year is speed. Because Charlie Munger had a quote that said, before I invest in something, before I go to help something, I first write down everything I could do to hurt this thing. And one of the things for me that's going to stop me from being who I want to be in this new year is speed. If I don't move fast enough, I'm not going to get to where I need to go. And for me, it all ties in together. It all somehow miraculously ties in. And when I had this misogi, I'm like, man, should I get my running shoes on now? Like, what time is it? 8 o'clock at night? Should I go now? And it's pulling me left and right. Because on one side, I know my life here is finite. I know my time here is not infinite. I know that I could go tomorrow. And would it matter if I ran this distance or not? Maybe, maybe not. But it's the urgency that it builds in your life that there is no tomorrow. There's only today. So work on your habits, work on your annual review, get better, improve, and really be the person you dream of. Be the person you look up to. Maybe you guys had a version like that. When I was younger, I had a few role models, and one of my role models was me 20 years in the future. Be that person. What would they do? Model yourself after them, and then become them. It's amazing how much you can get accomplished in a year, in 6 months, in a week. Don't underestimate it. And please, what Chris was teaching today, please, 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 I implore you, put it into practice. Put it into practice. There's no better time to change than right now.
And know that we don't get anything by you doing this. I guess we do, in that all of civilization advances if you do this, because you are part of it. We're all a part of it. So, our action step for this week is I want you to set time aside this week. Don't put this off, to get through this 7-step framework for your personal annual review done. If you have a partner, set a time with your partner, maybe go out to lunch or make a nice meal, sit down and do this. We just sat down on the couch, my wife and I, we just talked about it. We actually had to do it in 2 sessions because one session part of it got hard. We had to walk away and come back to it a little bit later. And that's okay. Everyone's journey is their journey. You know, Dominic, in Five Friday feedback, what I'd like to is explore. It's kind of funny. You said that your priority, maybe your priority for next year or for this year, is to speed up, to go faster. And I'm actually looking right over here, right off screen on my monitor. I have a sticky note that says slow down.
Interesting.
And that's something that I've been working on. So maybe we can explore that neither one of us are right, neither one of us are wrong. They're just different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people need to realize that that's okay. So I hope you got value from this podcast today, the 7-step framework. And I do want to say one other thing, Dominic, that you said, like, this is my framework. I'll say that maybe once or twice in my life I've had an original thought. But this framework is not mine. This is a framework that has been given to me by other people. I just happen to take little components of different parts and stuck them into 7 steps. But that isn't mine. Like, there is no original thought. We all just steal ideas a little bit, and then we just kind of like formulate them together and be like, original thought. Like, I put this over here and this over here together. And that's all this was. Like, yes, it might be a little bit different than other people's, but I guarantee if you go online, you'll probably find something like this. Maybe it'll have gratitude in a different place or theme in a different place. But this is what works for me. And you can also take this framework, wins, losses, lessons, gratitude, theme, priorities, plan, and play with it. Maybe you want to start with gratitude. And then there you go. You have your own 7 steps. It's completely different than mine.
Yeah.
So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
We're the sum of the content we consume. Mm-hmm. So before we exit, I just wanted to say a few of my notes from today's episode. From the beginning, remember to learning comes from reflection. So make sure you're reflecting on things, taking that time to not just go through the motions and get past it, but really try and understand, what can I learn from this specific situation? Also, the human experience, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. That's okay. It's way more exciting. You ever been on a roller coaster that was flat? Guess not. Losses bring clarity in the fog if you have the right framework. Gratitude doesn't bring you to the top of the mountain, but it helps you walk up the mountain. And finally, the unaimed arrow never misses its mark. Don't be the unaimed arrow. With that being said, please take action, like Chris was saying, and set a time this week for the 7-step framework. If you don't have someone to do it with yourself. But with that being said, we will see you on Friday. This has been a Monday episode of The Fi Guys. And I'm Dom. He's Chris. And final thoughts?
No, just like, subscribe to the video. If you're listening on podcast platforms, go ahead and subscribe. If you like to see our beautiful faces, we are available on YouTube. And most importantly, please share the Fi Guys with a friend. Bring someone along for this journey, because maybe if you don't have a partner, you can do this with somebody else. Yeah. So share this with them, and then you guys can do it together as a friend. Yeah. That totally works. All right, guys, we'll see you on Five Friday Feedback. Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor. It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.